It's nearly 6:30. Stay with us. Now it's time to join the BBC's news teams where you are. Bye-bye.
Good evening and welcome to North West Tonight, to what is our very last programme from the BBC's headquarters here in Manchester. Over the last 3 decades, there have been thousands of hours of programmes from this very building, from Red Dwarf, Question of Sport, Mastermind, BBC Radio 4, the BBC Philharmonic. It's all been based here. And tonight, it is our privilege, and indeed a sad honour, to finally bring the curtain down on 36 years of television and radio broadcasting from Oxford Road.
Also in tonight's programme, police ask for criminals' help to catch robbers who critically injured an elderly woman after stealing the bag that held her husband's ashes. The couple whose twin died after months of cruelty and abuse, an inquiry rules it was a bizarre crime which couldn't have been prevented. Repairs are underway after a power surge damages hundreds of homes, but the row over who should pay goes on. And making a splash, the world's first seaplane took off from Windermere 100 years ago today.
And as we're all in a bit of a nostalgic mood on the programme tonight, Dave Guest is out in the yard that's at the back of the BBC building, having his own Life on Mars moment. Dave.
That's right, Ranveer. Yes, indeed. This fine old lady behind me was known as North 3. Now, back in the days when this building was shiny and new in the 1970s, she'd be seen trundling in and out of this yard on her way to various exciting assignments. More about that later. And also later, we'll be looking back at some of the big stories that we've covered from here over the past 3 decades.
Thanks very much, Dave. First tonight, police in Oldham are tonight hunting 2 robbers who attacked.
From a bit of history there to our own bit of history here. For obvious reasons, we're all in a bit of a nostalgic mood this week, and Dave Guest's been looking back on this programme's 30-odd years in this building and meeting up with some familiar faces from the past. Let's join him now. And you're not very far away, Dave.
No, Ranveer, I've travelled all the way to the backyard. Now, back in the day, when we wanted to do a live broadcast from outside of the studio walls, we'd have used one of these things, an OB scanner van. They're monstrous machines. This one did 15 years service with the BBC. She retired in 1982, and Steve Harris has rescued her from retirement. Why?
Well, it's something that I've always been interested in, and this seemed, like an ideal opportunity to rescue an early piece of broadcasting technology.
Briefly, what do you do with her?
We go out to shows, and there is lots of interest in the old technology, so it is something which we find that all sorts of people are interested in. OK, Steve, thanks very much indeed. Well, these days we can do live news broadcasts from locations with nothing more than that stuck on the back of a camera. How times change. Well, the technology may have changed, but our basic job hasn't changed. We still have to bring you the big stories as and when they happen. Some of our former colleagues have been looking back at some of those big stories from the past 30 years.
You waited at home for the phone call, which always came round about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, off down to Faulkner Street or Faulkner Square, up a Parliament Street. It was a very troubling time, a very memorable time.
And I remember going through the programme on the Monday night, and it was like a blur. I think we were all in shock. But I remember getting quite emotional because we devoted the whole programme, of course, to that news story. And that left a very deep and lasting impression on me.
For 5 days last February, these were the most wanted criminals in Britain, 2 little boys of 10.
Then as the details emerged, and as the story developed, obviously it became something much worse, much darker, much more sinister. So obviously that is a memory that I will always carry with me.
I was the first reporter to do an outside broadcast from what was the ruins of central Manchester. When the rubble was cleared just enough, and you could still see shocking devastation, we brought the programme from just outside the Arndale Centre, where Marks and Spencer's is now.
Dr. Harold Shipman had taken an oath to preserve life. Instead, he became Britain's biggest serial killer.
By 10 o'clock, they'd found the first of what was to be 16 survivors. Sadly, by the early hours of this morning, they found the first of 19 bodies.
All these were huge stories at the time, but probably for me, the biggest story, the one I certainly most enjoyed and feel privileged to have been a part of, was when we had the Commonwealth Games here in 2002, and we did our programme live every night from the City of Manchester Stadium, right in the stadium.
The lights, the fireworks, the dancers have been packed away. Today, the athletes took centre stage.
Well, if that's been making you feel all nostalgic, make sure that you catch an Inside Out special tomorrow night, BBC 2 at 8:15 p.m. TV greats will be recalling some of the major programmes that have been made here in the North over the past 30 years or so. There'll be lots of nostalgic trips for you in that. But for now, are you receiving me, Studio B?
Loud and clear, Dave, loud and clear.
Gosh, we got lost in the mists of time.
Way too close for my liking, that was.
Now we're onto a subject that I know obviously nothing about. Well, that doesn't narrow it down, but it's actually the on-air blooper. So, as part of our look back at our time spent here at Oxford Road, Dave Guest has been collecting some of our best, or should that be worst, moments.
Judging by the
Here at North West Tonight, we're proud to have a news team who know the patch inside out.
Tonight we're just outside Kendal at a place called Scout. I can't remember what it's called. It's getting to me this trip.
Okay, well, we'll leave you to find out where you are. We will join you later.
Careful, Gordon. Remember that saying about glass houses?
Good evening, welcome to North West Today, or good afternoon, that should be.
You should pray for everything to break down. Everything to break down, and then the public could see exactly what you're made of.
His prayers were answered during this feature about Blackpool illuminations when the lights went out, literally.
Well, I must apologise that after 20-odd years in television, we've never had the lights put out on us before.
Stuart was always keen on a cookery item. Sadly, his most infamous wasn't caught on tape, but it lives in the memory. It involved making the world's biggest Christmas pudding live in the studio. What could possibly go wrong?
I'm putting the ingredients in, and suddenly to my consternation, I realised it was a 28-pound bowl, and I got 100 weight of pudding.
And before anybody knew where they were, Stuart had Christmas pudding going everywhere.
Up the ceiling, on the wall, all over the cameraman, everywhere. It was the biggest disaster in history.
Our editor at the time, who was not famous for his sense of humour, was going ballistic in the gallery.
I'm not sure whether this young lady saw the funny side when I interviewed her live at the Liverpool Fashion Show.
I work 9 to 5 as a commercial property solicitor, and in my spare time as a perk of the job I get...
Which is better, modelling or... I was going to say soliciting, I shouldn't say that, should I? For others, animals have been their undoing.
I remember at Chester Zoo, there's a famous picture, they keep digging it out every so often, where I was crouched down and one of the penguins came up and had a nibble between my legs, shall we just say.
I've been all around the country.
In fact, I'll leave you with a few animal crackers.
So we've had a mass exodus. This is the whole North West Tonight team. You can spot your favourites out there. It's been fantastic, hasn't it? And it's a bit sad, but it's exciting at the same time.
Do you know what? I should be more sentimental because I met my husband in that building.
Did you?
Oh my
yes,
goodness!
I really did. But
How did it? What was his first line, Di? Can you remember?
Well, he was a cameraman, so he was just always there.
Come on, get that all right. Sorry.
There we go.
I won't waste it.
Buy their own pints later. Listen, this is it. The last time for us from Oxford Road. We're back at Media City on Monday, but from us, we're going to eventually raise a glass to Oxford Road. Good night.
Good night.
Good evening, welcome to the Oxford Road Show, live from the Oxford Road studio in Manchester.
Welcome to a question of sport and another strenuous mental workout ahead, which is never a good thing for these two. It's the captain.
Good evening and welcome to North West Tonight with Roger Johnson
and Ranveer Singh. Our top story. Now it's time for Women's Art from Manchester with Jenny Murray.
Good morning.
One of the things we've enjoyed over the years is well, sharing the riches of your Walbum archive.
I just want to say and I mean this, an absolute privilege it's been to be in your homes. Sorry, I've gone now.